From the New York City area, welcome to the Badass Counseling Show, where the master badass himself, Sven takes you deep and gives balm for the soul, baby.
Well. Badasses around the U.S., badasses around North America, badasses around the world. It is great to have you here. Whether you are checking in from New Orleans or checking in from Buffalo, New York, or even, well, Salt Lake City. No matter where you are checking in from, we love having you here. We love our folks in Scotland and all the way down through the Italy and down into Africa. We've got listeners around the world down under and Japan and so forth. It's just really great having you here. I am here. I'm Sven Erlandson. I am the host of this show. I have had a counseling practice for 30 years, the last 10 of which have been in Manhattan, New York City. I have clients around the world, and I, a couple times a week, get together with my team here, and we don't get paid for this. And we just...
What?
Rob's still waiting for the check. We do this for free. Rob does far more work than any of us, but Casey is an absolutely critical piece of the equation. They just carry me along here. But we get together to answer your questions. We create two different types of shows each week. On Thursdays, we release a counseling episode where I'm literally counseling on the show. So this morning in our taping, we've taped, and this is now our third episode. The first one was a counseling episode, and that goes up on Thursdays, the counseling episodes, where I'm literally taking people's into a counseling session for free. And so if you ever want to be on the show or you need some counseling help, write into these mutts to production at badasscounseling.com. That's production at badasscounseling.com. Send them one paragraph, not 17, not a full page, one paragraph, 10 lines, whatever it is, 200, 250 words of what you're struggling with. And they go through them and they decide who will be good to get on the show. And we've had plenty of people say, "Oh, I didn't know you were going to pick me," and they've been on the show. And you got to be one to just open up. And we're here to help. And then our Sunday episodes, and we'll have a new one going up just tonight. That's these lightning rounds where I take people's questions. It is the Badass Counseling Show, and is available on Spotify, Audible, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, et al. So let's take some questions. We keep talking about it. Why don't we actually do it? All right. How do you get back to your real gut self if you struggle with anxiety, trust issues, etc., and you actually often are incorrect with false assumptions? Is it possible to rebuild trust with someone if it's broken? If so, how long? Okay, that's like 7 questions right there. So I am going to, where do you even start? I'm not going to take all of those because that's not fair to everyone else. So how do you get back to your real gut self if you struggle with anxiety and trust issues and actually often are incorrect with false assumptions? I actually want to address that part. This notion of how do I know if I'm acting from my own authentic self or if I'm acting from something else, maybe my fears or what I've been conditioned to believe about myself. This is why, folks, it's so critical, this work that I always talk about, flushing out and identifying. It's going down into yourself and beginning to purge out of you, beginning to identify and purge out of you your pains, your fears, and the bullshit beliefs you've been taught about yourself. Okay? And you think, well, I don't know what those bullshit beliefs are. Or some people say, I actually know what they are. Very often not, you don't know what your real beliefs are. When you were young, it's like wet cement was poured over the bedrock of who you are. Wet cement got poured, and then messages got pressed into that wet cement that you may not even be aware of, and often they were not explicit. They may have been conveyed through a look. They may have been conveyed through how you saw the powerful people in your life treat other people. But those messages got pressed into the wet cement of your soul, and those messages hardened. They calcified. And they became fundamentally the virus infecting the operating system of who you are. So you can't even see what those core beliefs are. So you ask, how do you get back to your real gut self if you struggle with anxiety, trust issues, and you actually often are incorrect with your false assumptions? All of your assumptions and all of your answers are going to be incorrect if you are operating from that now hard cement that has those beliefs, because that virus is infecting you. So what might be a very brief example? We had a fellow on the show earlier when we were taping the first episode. It was a Thursday episode. Big dude, TJ. And that episode will be coming out in probably a few weeks. Anyway, and dealing with feelings. You know, he's in his early 40s dealing with feelings. And one of the messages that TJ got as a child is, and this is a bit of a spoiler alert for that show, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. He couldn't think of anything. I didn't get any messages from my parents. I got a message from my grandpa, and he would say, work hard and be honest. Okay, well, that's an explicit message, right? And so I had to approach it from a different angle. I had to attack it kind of like a running back trying to find a hole in the offensive line to punch through and spring into the defensive backfield. So I basically asked him how he was treated by his dad, how he was treated by his mom. And he said, well, dad was an alcoholic and he was always gone and he was always doing his own thing. And so then I dig down. I said, well, how does that feel to a kid? He says, and he's crying at this point. And it's a big dude. This is a man's man, big dude. And he starts sort of crying a bit. And I said, what are you feeling? He says, it hurts so much. Because dad, he just didn't want to be with me. He had his own life. And I said, and that hurts. He said, yeah. And I said, so what was the message you probably got in that? He said, I don't know. And so I threw out a few ideas. And one of them was basically that you don't matter. And that you're not important to your own dad. And probably all that kid ever wanted was just his dad to give him some love and play catch them. He said, that's exactly what it is, and it hurt so bad. So just in minutes, got this big behemoth of a man down to the real fucking feelings. And so one of the messages that had gotten pressed into the wet cement of his soul was, you're not important. You don't matter. Then what we discovered was just as bad or worse. I said, what about from your mom? Any messages? No, mom was loving. Mom was kind. Oh, yeah. Was mom a good cook? He said, yeah. Oh, she had this great dish, and I'm not going to tell you what it is. You have to listen to the show. I had never heard of this dish before. Anyway, but she had a temper. I said, oh, and when she had a temper, how would she treat you or whatever? He says, well, blah, blah, blah. And then he says, and she would always say, I wish you had never been born. And when he said that, a groan went through the entire studio here. All of us in the studio were like, oh my God, this poor guy. You want to talk about a message being implanted in who you are? And he couldn't see it until I then went on to explain. You got told that by your own mother, the very vagina that you came from, you got told, I wish you had never been born. In other words, I said, of all the different messages, of all the things your mother said to you in your life, you remember that one. Why do you think that is? Is it possible because it's so big, it's so huge? And he says, yeah. I said, exactly. You got the message that you weren't wanted, that you're no good. I don't like you. I don't love you. I don't want you. I said, you don't think that's fucking infecting your entire fucking life? And we're into this in like 30 minutes. Dude, powerful counseling. If you go deep enough, you can get results so fucking quickly. This is why I do 6-hour sessions with my clients, opening sessions. Why? Because this shit doesn't have to take years. My clients want success now. And his mom, we discovered, his mom said that. So all of a sudden, he's just like, he's crying. And I mean, it's like the heavens parted. And I said, and so the reason you've let, people, you've been so loyal to people you love is you've just been longing for someone to confirm your worth your entire life, because the two most powerful people in your life denied your worth. They told you you're not important, that you are unloved, unwanted, unworthy, and unlovable. Yeah. So that's what it means to have messages that are down there that you can't even see, that weren't even conveyed. His mother never said, you don't have worth. I don't love you. She never said, I don't care about you. She never said you're not important. His father never said you're not important. They didn't say any of those messages. But their actions and their other words definitely conveyed those messages. They conveyed them so powerfully that here we are 40 years later, since this boy was young. Here we are. He's not even on this podcast thread. Here we are talking about it, and we can feel it. We can feel it. I can feel it. Some of you are commenting right now. Holy shit. Even he said, I would never do that with my kids. I said, exactly. That's how powerful it is. So you don't think a 6-year-old boy or an 11-year-old boy felt that? You don't think that destroyed your fucking soul? He says, yeah, it did. I said, yeah, it did. These are the messages, guys. And we've all got them down there. And maybe they're not as heinous as that, or maybe they're infinitely worse. As that hard as that may be to believe. But we all have messages that got pressed into the wet cement of our soul when we were children. by the powerful people in our lives. And you think you are operating from your own sense of self until you jackhammer that cement and rid yourself of those messages so as to reveal the beautiful bedrock that was there the whole time that never needed any cement on it. Until you jackhammer that, you are operating from a sense of not you. And not you always manifest to some greater or lesser degree comes from a place of anxiety and fear, or it comes from a place of calm and exuberance. And that's authentic you. Authentic you comes from a place of calm and exuberance. If with the thought you are considering or the course of action you are considering brings a sense of calm, brings it or a sense of excitement, like genuine excited, it's authentic self. If it comes from a place of fear or creates anxiety, it is not authentic self. That's the answer to your question. All right, next question. Now, to which, listen up. Muscle Mother over here on TikTok says, well, it makes me wonder what I did to my children when they were young, ! Now they are grown up. That's a bingo. That's a bingo. No, we just say bingo. Movie quote, Inglourious Bastards. All right, that's a bingo. Exactly, Muscle Mother. Makes me ponder what I did to my children when they were growing up! She says. Now they're growing up. Exactly. The point is, if the parents are capable of pressing such powerful messages into the wet cement of the child, then if I am the parent, doesn't it behoove me to begin to wonder what I am doing that I may not even be aware I'm doing? What I'm saying that may be interpreted in certain ways. Well, wait a minute, Sven. If you just said that all of our actions are being driven by what got pressed into the wet cement of our soul, that means my adult kids are being driven by what I press into their soul. But that also means that my parenting was a direct result of what was pressed into my own soul when I was 6 and 12. Those messages didn't just govern my career choices or my love choices, or that I chose to stay with someone who always took advantage of me or wasn't nice to me or whatever, because, I'd never had someone pay attention to me. It wasn't just love and career and friendships. It was also my parenting. And now we're down to the crux of the issue, folks. The only real way to heal your parenting, whether you are actively doing it with young children or actively doing it with adult children or inactively with adult children, the only way to improve your parenting, the only way to truly break generational curses, people, is to heal your own past. And that means to go down to the bedrock of your soul and jackhammer the shit out of those messages, which you can only do by identifying them. My mother, you've heard me talk about her before. She died at age 93 in 2021. She did this work long before I came along, and one of her favorite phrases, this is a Charlotte-ism, she would always say, naming the beast is half the problem. And you can't name it. And in other words, really understand it. To name something means to get it, to be able to name something, to truly understand it, see where it's coming from, see how it got there. It's not just giving it a name. Oh, it's blah, blah, blah. It's generational curse. No, that doesn't solve anything. It's going out, identifying where it came from, how it was transferred and so forth, and then flushing out the pain that goes with it. And that's what this deep work is about. And that's what my book is about. There's a hole in my love cup, all right? And that's what and we have the Spanish version of it too, but I wrote this book. It's fucking $20. It's 80% of my counseling method in one book. It'll kick your fucking ass. It will challenge the hell out of you, take you to the scary, ugly places. But it's this. It's just like that big dude, TJ, that I was just telling you about. I'm counseling him, and the guy's breaking down. It's a beautiful thing to watch a grown-ass man cry out of realization, and you could just see the burden being lifted from this guy. The burden of realizing, wait, Sven, does that mean it wasn't my fault? Bingo. That's a bingo. Exactly. You were a kid. There ain't one damn thing that a 7-year-old could possibly do to justify having love withheld. There ain't one single thing that an 11-year-old kid could do to justify, have the message conveyed to that little girl, you're unlovable. There's nothing. There was nothing wrong with you, people. There wasn't. It was a bullshit lie that you were taught about yourself. All right. Can a therapist be manipulating? I know there is very broad 3 years, a third of a year of intense CBT, and I feel crazy. Can a therapist be manipulating? Sure, of course. Think about it. You're trusting someone with immense power, And it's the power of your trust. It's the power of your story. Can they be manipulating? Sure, anybody can. In some respects, it's like when I always say, children are so easy to manipulate. They really are. But a therapist can be manipulating, which is part of why that relationship is protected and is sacred and so forth. So to answer your question, yes. And you need to monitor that in your own counseling, people. Do you feel like this is a critical question for me? And this is one in my own counseling of people over 30 years. This is an extremely critical question. Is this person trying to drive me to their agenda, or is this person trying to help me hear my own voice? Everything boils down to that. Okay. Now, when I get clients working with me, there are times when I say, you're coming to me fundamentally to help me introduce you to you, to help you build a relationship with you. Now, you may not like everywhere I'm going to take you, and I am going to kick your ass. And it is going to be hard. I'm going to love you in it, and I'm compassionate, but I'm not here to let you, write the roadmap. I'll tell you where we're going, and I'm going to get you there. Okay. But if that's where you want to go, I'll get you there. So in this case, is your therapist, is their goal or what they're trying to get you to do, does that sit right with who you are? Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be comfortable. If you're going into therapy wanting it to be comfortable or something like that, you're wasting your money. Therapy is uncomfortable, but manipulating you, not okay. That the ultimate goal is to get you deeper and deeper so that you are fully connecting and operating from your deepest sense of self. All right. Twitch panelist says, so true, the therapist wanted me to follow her agenda. Go ahead, Rob.
From YouTube, this question: my mom disowned me and everyone else in the family after her sister died. She was so toxic, I'm glad she left. She used to stress me out to the max, so why does it hurt when my life is better off without her?
Because you still want something from her. You may not realize it, but if you're ever still sort of in contact with someone, or let's say a different scenario, what's this person's name?
Dead Soul Cutie.
Dead Soul Cutie, okay, is asking, basically, mom's sister died, and when mom's sister died, she cut all his kids out, and she's been toxic, yet why am I still hurting even though my life is better without my mom? Because you're still wanting something from her, and what you're really wanting deep down is confirmation that you matter and confirmation that she loves you. And for her to somehow give you the attention or the affection or the acceptance or the approval or the acknowledgement that you've always wanted, or of all the shit she's done, or an apology. You're wanting one of the A's: affection, attention, approval, acceptance, acknowledgement, or apology. And you're not getting it. And the reason you want it is because then, I always ask my clients, well, then what? If you got that, then what? Well, shit, Sven, I don't know. And eventually they get around to things like, well, then I'd feel like I'm important. Then I'd feel like I matter. Then I'd feel kind of at peace inside. Then I'd feel good in my relationships. Then I'd feel whole. Then I'd feel loved. All right. So why this hurts so much is because she has rejected you. She has pushed you away. She has been toxic towards you and your siblings. And what is the underlying message if I am pushing someone away? The underlying message is, I don't want you. I don't like you. I don't love you. Well, shit. You say that to your own child, and guess what? Even if that child is an adult, guess what that child is going to want? They're going to want your love even more. So even though your life is better, her toxicity, it's nice to have her toxicity out of your life. Deep down, your soul is still wanting her to come back and reconfirm that you do matter, or perhaps she never really confirmed that message to begin with, so you've been chasing something deeper than just what happened when her own sister died. Although, if she can completely disassociate from her own children just because her sister died, not to say that isn't painful, but if that caused you to check out from your own children, that tells me mom has likely been sending that or similar messages all of your life. If she is that capable of changing the most intimate or what should be the closest relationships of her life simply because of a death. And I'm not saying death isn't important, but to pull away from your own children, that says how important it is, which indicates how likely emotionally fragile your mom is. And so what you are still wanting is you're still wanting something from her. And what you're wanting at the end at the core is in all likelihood a confirmation of your worth, a confirmation of your mattering. And the hard part is accepting I may never get that. And we so often think, well, if I don't get it from this one person, could be a mom, could be a dad, usually it's whoever raised you, if I don't get it from this person, then I can never believe that I have worth and I matter. And as you guys have heard me say before, it's like being locked in a jail cell, believing that that person and only that person has the key to the cell, when in fact the key to the cell has been in your pocket the whole time. But what it requires is grieving the fact that you are never going to get that love, in all likelihood, that you've been wanting, and not just the love, the sense of importance, the sense that you matter. You're likely never going to get it. Thus, it is both simultaneously the saddest day of your life, because you realize you'll never get it, but also you realize you've been contorting yourself, engaging in all sorts of life gymnastics to try to get this person to love you, and it hasn't mattered, and in a way it feels like a waste of a life. But on the other hand, it's the most liberating day of your life, because you realize you no longer have to spend your life bending and contorting trying to get their love and attention, and your life today is finally your own. This question, more questions just like this, right after this very, very short break.
I had a really good start in my life, and I've been successful in my career, but I have to say I've learned so much and improved my outlook on life since I met Sven and picked up a copy of Badass Wisdom. With the daily meditations as journaling prompts, I've uncovered a lot of memories that weren't totally pleasant. With Sven's guidance, I've achieved some new understanding, and honestly, I feel lighter. Badass Wisdom is a great read, in nice small bites, and I think anyone can benefit from it. So go to badasscounseling.com and get the book or the audiobook. It could change your life.
This show provides soul counseling intended to entertain and inform, and is not medical advice. Now, back to the badass.
Hi, guys. We are back. All right, and back into your questions. This is great. I've got Lynn on Facebook asking me the question. So I broke up because he stopped video chatting and texting much, but he wants me to wait for him. Wait for him to do what? I don't understand. Of course he wants you to wait for him. I'll speak for myself. Anytime I've been broken up from, even if I had the intention of breaking up with that person later in the day and they beat me to it, I'm like, oh, fuck, I want them back. That's not fair. Oh, I'm so wounded. Usually if you're getting broken up from, you're probably not seeing it coming, and it hurts. And at least for a short or a long time, you want that person back. And so Lynn, basically your boyfriend, your husband, boyfriend likely, wants you to wait for him. What he's saying is, please don't break up with me. I want you back. And the mere fact that you are posting that on a public site, which is fine, no big deal, indicates you're struggling with it. Why, if it's not a problem, why would you even bring it up, right? Nothing wrong with bringing it up, but you wouldn't bring it up if it was, that hamburger you ate yesterday. Why? Because that hamburger is no big deal. But this clearly is a big deal, which is why you felt the need to bring it up. So I broke up because he stopped video chatting and texting so much. In other words, he was blowing you off. He was telling you implicitly through his actions, you're not as important to me as you used to be. You're not important, right? And then, but he wants me to wait for him, right? You've walked away from him. Now he's saying, come back, come back, come back. And you're struggling with it, obviously, because part of you wants him back, because part of you broke up with him or didn't want to break up with him. Right? Part of you still loves him. And so what you have to do is you have to begin journaling and writing letters to him that you don't send, flushing out all those feelings of love. Why? The more you do that, eventually those feelings will fade away and you'll be able to walk on without because you kind of still have one foot in the past, like, oh shit, should I go back? Blah, 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 which is why you're posting this message. Part of you wants to go back, but you got to flush out all those feelings. And then that foot that's facing backwards, it will turn forward and you'll just march on forward. Here we go. Can you give some pointers in journaling for feelings of low self-worth? I know there's something bigger. Thank you. You're struggling with self-worth. Can you give me some pointers for journaling? Yeah, low self-worth really isn't the point. That's the symptom. It's like, let me ask you this. If you have, your nose is stuffed up and you've got, your stomach's really upset and coughing a lot, maybe even, spitting up a little sputum, all right? Colored sputum. Are the colored sputum, Rob's got this face like, Sven, really? You had to say sputum? And what is it about that word? Most of us don't even know what it is, but just that word. Rob,
in color.
In color, right. Well, that's they ask, is your sputum colored, right? I always called it spit, and then the doctor's saying sputum, and I'm like, okay, that's a new one. If you're having those things, are they the problem? No. I mean, those are what you want to go away, but what do we know? Those are an infection or those are a virus. So it's the virus or it's the bacterial infection that is the actual problem. So when you say, can you give me some pointers in journaling for feelings of low self-esteem? The low self-esteem isn't the problem, it's the symptom. The problem is the belief down here in the root of who you are that by the time it gets all the way up to the surface is manifesting in low self-esteem. It's manifesting in self-flagellation. It's manifesting in perhaps being reticent in relationships or hiding yourself or being overly gregarious to try to get attention or whatever it is. It's manifesting in all these other problems. But the core problem is down here in the area of root beliefs, which is why I don't believe in trying to change beliefs or try to change behaviors. As I write about in my book, There's a Hole in My Love Cup, trying to change behaviors long-term never changes behaviors. Until the core beliefs down here driving the behaviors change, the behavior changes won't stick. Won't stick. So when you say, can you give me some pointers in journaling for feelings of low self-worth? Yeah, go down inside yourself and begin to ask yourself, as I was just talking about before, when I was talking about TJ, the guy that we had on the show, I was counseling on the show, go down and start asking yourself really the questions that I ask in the book. Things like, what were the messages that were conveyed to you growing up? How were you treated growing up? What do you remember most about any sort of negative treatment from either one or both your parents? And how did it feel? And what does how you were treated indicate about your the message that was being conveyed to you? So if you're being, neglected a lot, well, what's the underlying message? You don't matter, right? If you're being told you're a loser and, God, you're so stupid, or I've had plenty of people being told over the years, you're a slut, you're a little shit, you're going to be a drug addict just like your mother, just like your father, or whatever. You get those messages? Well, what is there an even deeper message than, you're a slut and you're going to be a drug addict someday? Yeah, deeper messages are you're unlovable, you're bad, right? You're unwantable. Your real self doesn't matter. Well, those messages. So when you're journaling, those are the messages. That's the deep shit we're trying to get down to. And the more you write about that and allow the feelings that go along with that to come out, the more you heal, which again, Badass Wisdom, which is my other book, and There's a Hole in My Love Cup, were both written to take you down there so you're not having to figure out these questions on your own. To take you down there, hold your hand, kick your ass, and help you heal. All right, next question. How do you deal with being triggered by gaslighting and false apologies? How do you deal with being triggered by gaslighting and false apologies? You guys, anytime you feel yourself being triggered, somebody's actions, somebody's words, a course of events triggering you, you have to understand that the thing triggering you is not the problem. It's a symptom of a greater problem. What's the greater problem? The greater problem is what's inside of you that is being triggered. The way I describe it is you've got a bunch of sticks of dynamite in you, and they have fuses. And whatever lights that fuse aglow is the trigger, but the thing that's being triggered is the fucking dynamite. So you ask the question, how do you deal with being triggered by gaslighting and false apologies? You go inside and you find out inside of you, again, with these deep questions we've been talking about, what is it that is being triggered? What memories do I have that feel similar to this situation? What thoughts do I have? What pains do I have attached to some memory that are being electrified when this new trigger drops in? Because if you don't go down to what those sticks of dynamite are, then you're just going to spend your life avoiding anything that looks like a match or a lighter. Metaphorically speaking, I hope we all understand that. And so that's, necessary in the beginning of the process. But if you're still just trying to avoid anything that looks like a match or a lighter, anything that might trigger you, you're coping. You're not healing. Healing is going down to the root causes of those sticks of dynamite and getting those out. And then all of a sudden, guess what? You don't have dynamite inside of you and you're not getting triggered. All righty. Next question. Harriet asks, well, does it have to be from childhood or can it be from my first marriage? Oh, it can absolutely be from first marriage because we can get more sticks of dynamite, Harriet. And you know this, you've read the book, but it's no problem. Any new experience can insert a new stick of dynamite in us. But the mere fact that happened at that point and I didn't get it out at that point says that I was still living based on something previous to that in my childhood that caused me to accept that new stick of dynamite, which says that was set up by something in the past back in childhood that still hasn't been identified and rooted out. All right. Here's a tough one. Guys, this is going to be a hard one. This is from Jun D. And she says, extreme taker daughter has cut me out of her life. Been no contact for a year. It's heartbreaking. Help. Okay. First of all, the easy part. And the easy part is I'm sorry. I'm sorry it's hard. It's hard being away from our own children. It's hard being, cut out, or it's hard just not being with them, and so on and so forth. So I do feel bad for you. And you identify your daughter as an extreme taker. And the hard part is this. The question is, how did your daughter become a extreme taker? See, the truth is people become extreme takers. They aren't born that way. A lot of people believe they are. No, it's conditioned. Child doesn't come out of the womb, being a butthead. All right. They come out of the womb in love with the world, kind, and so on and so forth. And given loving parents who also have, parameters and, and so forth, the child grows in a sense of feeling loved. That doesn't mean they get everything they want. In fact, if they get everything they want, then they're being taught that their every want is the important part. You see that one of the ways to breed an extreme taker, but the other way an extreme taker gets bred is that they're not given the love. They're being criticized, they're being ridiculed, they're being denied, they're being neglected. And so what does that child do? And I've seen it, I've had clients where we've talked, go back and look at the episode from listen to the March 23rd, 2023 episode of the podcast. It's on Spotify Audible. It's the one about, we had a confessed narcissist trying to get out of it and recover. And we had a woman, that was a man, and then a woman who had been with a narcissist and trying to recover from that. They didn't know each other, two different people, and we had them together. It was a powerful episode. And that person flat out said on the show, the guy said, it started when I was 8. I realized, basically he realized he wasn't getting love and he had to start taking from every source. All right. So when you say my extreme taker daughter has cut me out of her life, it's heartbreaking. Sure, because you want that relationship back. But let me ask you this question, Jun D. And I respect you for asking this question because the answer is hard, whether you're aware of it or not. The question I would ask you is, if you could choose between two choices, and this is for everybody, not just Jun D, if you could choose between your adult child being healed, but you not getting a relationship with them, or them not being healed, but you get a relationship with them, which would you choose? Now, I'm going to tell you right now, there's only one right answer. And the one right answer is I would choose that my child be healed, even if I don't get to have a relationship with them. So, Jun D, the question you have to ask yourself is, have I done everything in my power to help my child heal from the pain that I have caused? Because they became an extreme taker, likely growing up. Could be from you, could be from whoever else raised them. But it implies that their needs weren't being met as a child, which if I'm the parent, and believe me, I'm guilty of this sin, so I'm not just casting aspersions willy-nilly. I'm guilty of this, all right? If I am not meeting my child's needs growing up, they are going to engage in types of behavior where they try to get love, and they either become an extreme taker or an extreme giver. Both are in ways to try to get love, and yours, it sounds like, became an extreme taker. And it's possible that she has cut you out of her life because she sees you as a source of not getting love as a child. So how do you begin to either not just even repair that relationship, how do you begin to help that child repair themselves, knowing I may never get the relationship back? Well, I did another video. I've done it twice, but I last reposted it. And this one was a video. The other one that I mentioned, March 23rd, 2023, was a podcast episode. Like I said, Spotify, Audible, it's on all the sites. But helping an adult child repair themselves and their own sense of soul, even if you never get the relationship back, I reposted a video that I did. I did it on December 25th, I believe. So the day after Christmas, in my home, Christmas is December 24th. Anyway, but just go to December 25th, and I'm sitting outside. I've got a sort of sheepskin leather jacket on. There's snow around me, and I give the 7 basic tips for helping your adult child heal. But the bottom line is, Jun D, your child believes, in all likelihood, I mean, if you just want this honest answer, your child likely believes that you are the source of her own lack of self-love, that you are not the loving parent, and that you likely, and I'm just telling from their perspective, without having talked to the person, I have no way of knowing. But just based on this slight little sort of chunk of a pattern, I'm willing to bet that this person believes that you have caused them a lot of pain. And don't want you to be in their life, which is extraordinarily painful. And as I said, I've lived through that. I know what you're going through right now. And so you have to begin to ask yourself, A, how do I heal myself? Because you got to do it, because your life is going to have to go on if you never have a relationship with your child. But also importantly, you need to begin to discern what it is that I've done to cause this person pain, do what I can to offer healing for that, and then also simultaneously let go of wanting the relationship. Because if you do all these things in hopes of having the relationship, it would be very easy for the person on the receiving end to think you're just doing this because you want me back. You want a relationship with me. You want me back so that you'll get me to keep pouring love into your love cup. So if there's an agenda for helping the person heal, or even a perceived agenda for helping the person heal, they're not going to trust you. If it is not given as a free gift with no strings attached, they're not going to trust you. Next question. Go ahead, Rob. You got something to say?
I do. This person says, help me please. How do you stop your inner child and protect your actual children when you see them doing something that you got hurt for as a child, even when you know they aren't doing something wrong?
What was the opening half sentence of that? How do you protect from my inner child? Is that what it was?
Yeah. How do you stop your inner child?
Stop right there.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rob. First of all, it's not your inner child that is causing your own children pain. It is the people who hurt your inner child. And I know this is sort of niggling details, but your inner child was and is sweet, innocent, kind, and unworthy of harm. Okay? And so what you're really asking is, how do you stop the messages that were implanted in you? And the stuff that was done to your inner child was done by the most powerful people in your life, usually mom and dad, two most powerful people in your life, ever and always, until you finally get them out of inside of you. And they did damage to you, all right? And so then that created this virus that adult you is operating under. The inner child you it'd be great if inner child you were actually the authentic inner child you were raising your kids. That would be perfect. That'd be great. Okay. But anyway, you're asking, how do you stop it? You stop it by healing that past. This is all the stuff we're talking about here, folks. This is what the books are for. There's a hole in my love cup. It's to help you go down and identify the wounds committed against inner child. So you have to go back and basically heal that child, which doesn't have to take forever. Doesn't have to take forever. My book, There's a Hole in My Love Cup. There's a little star on it on the Spanish version. That star is because it's an Amazon bestseller, specifically in the field of inner child work. Basically what you have to do is go down there, as we've been talking about throughout this whole thread today, is going down and identify those messages that were taught to you about yourself, beginning to extract them, and simultaneously release the emotional charges that are attached to your memories. Memories get emotional attachments, emotional charges. The more we release those, now we just have an empty memory. Like I said, like that hamburger you ate yesterday, you have no emotional charge attached to that memory, but it's still a memory. But the ones that you feel are the memories that you have that have emotional charges. All right, next question. Somebody says, well, Sven, is all this stuff generational? Yeah, of course it is. That the shit in you from your childhood was passed to you by parents who, in all likelihood, had not healed the shit from their own childhood. So those wounds from their childhood to their, inner child, those wounds were then either directly driving, outright, flat out driving, or somehow lacing, infecting the decisions, the choices, the actions that your parent made. And now you're just doing the same. You're maybe doing the same or doing different things. All right. And you may be saying, and I just put up a video on this yesterday, but I did it on who have you spent your life trying to not become? And one of the people made a comment, I don't know which social media network it was on, but made the comment, you're right, Sven, I've spent my whole life trying to not be my mom. And I realized, it's had, in its own ways, worse effects on my kids. That this woman has been taking her cues, not from her authentic self, but from an external power source, her mom. And as I always say, the opposite of shit can oftentimes still be shit, just have a different flavor. All right, next question. So yes, it is generational, Jules, and that's why we talk about this notion of breaking generational curses. And you really only break generational curses not by changing your behaviors up on the surface of life, but going down to the core beliefs that were maligned, going down and finding, discerning, naming those core beliefs, and then jackhammering them. Because as I said, the wet cement got poured onto the bedrock of your soul, and messages got written into it that you cannot see until you jackhammer that, you will never be operating from the very root core of who you are, which is that bedrock. That bedrock never needed cement on it to begin with. Your bedrock is your authentic you. It's your connection to the divine, however you define that. Well, here's a break question. What music do you listen to? My default in the mornings usually is Mozart, classical. If I'm writing, I always have classical on, almost always have classical on, unless it's an intense chapter. Then I've usually got my workout stuff on, which is rap, hip hop. I mean, the hardcore shit. A few, not a lot, but then a lot of 70s rock. I listen to a lot of 70s rock. Rob and I jam over that. He likes 60s and 70s. I like 60s, but if it's like dinner time, I turn on French cafe, or Italian cafe, and I'm in a French cafe and they're singing I feel like I'm cooking, or just I like big band. But it depends on my mood. I've got a workout track. My daughter sent me her workout track, which is more like hip hoppy. Mine's some of the rap, but it's also the hard rock. Like Black Sabbath, War Pigs, and then there's a remake of War Pigs by somebody that is almost better than the original. And there's I was a Def Leppard guy, so I have some of that, but I kind of OD'd on that at one point, back in the 80s, 90s. And so yeah, it just depends on what I'm doing. But if I'm writing, if I'm in creative mode, it's almost always classical, unless I'm really getting into some heavy shit where I know I got to bang some heads, and then I put back on the workout music, or maybe some Zeppelin or something like that. Rob? Let's ask Rob. Rob, what music do you listen to?
Oh, you got it. I mean, I'm stuck in the 60s. They say if you remember the 60s, you weren't there, but I do remember it.
I had a client years ago who said, Sven, you want to know where I was for Woodstock? During Woodstock? I said, no. He says, I was literally there, and I was one of the guys selling. I'm like, wow, you got some history there, Daddy-O.
He probably was the one selling the brown acid you weren't supposed to take.
Oh, wow. Who knew? Evidently not the people who took it. Next question. My ex is an alcoholic. I stress over what my survival mode did to my kids. Good. I'm glad you stress over that. And I hope that stress is causing you to look at thoroughly how, and this is that video I was telling you about that I put up on December 25th of 2023. It's a repost, but the one where I'm talking about how to help your children heal from the damage you've caused. And we all have. It's good that you're thinking about these things, because now you can begin to look at and delineate. In other words, write out, bullet point, all the things, every single thing that you think you may have done that may have hurt your children. Then next to those bullet points, list all the feelings that they may have felt as a result. Whether they did or not, you're speculating. You're using your brain to begin to tune in how I might have hurt someone else. But this isn't just any other someone else. This is someone else, children, whom you had absolute power over. Absolute power. You control their food source, you control their water, you control their coming and their going, their roof, their clothing, you control their friends, you control everything. So if you are not, and this isn't just you now, Michelle, I'm extrapolating to others. If you are not actively examining the pain you are causing people that you have power over, you likely shouldn't have power in the first place, right? The notion I didn't make mistakes, or I didn't make any big mistakes, is nonsense. We all do as parents. And we all make big ones, even as parents. My mother, into her 70s, felt immense guilt for how she had raised us kids. Every single one of my siblings, all 5 of them and me, would say we were blessed to come from the home we came from. Both of our parents were incredible. World War II generation, born in 28, all right? And but nonetheless, Mom felt guilt for this and for that and the other things. And I've told you before, each of my parents came to us and asked us to share with them anything, pains we might have caused, or ways they might have caused, or ways they might have let us down, etc. And she felt the guilt, and finally she relieved herself of that guilt. Finally, she forgave herself. And she was a religious person, a spiritual person, so she sought God's forgiveness and so forth for her. And then she actually said, interestingly, much later in her life, she said, I wish I would have forgiven myself sooner. I wish I would have. But forgiving really requires getting it all out first. All right. Here we go. Rob, have you got a question for me?
When I try to write a letter or journal about the person who caused me pain, I really struggle and get stuck. Can't even write their name. It feels like I'm choking, like my throat feels clogged.
Oh, yeah. Anybody, I'm not a huge, I don't do anything with it, but I'm familiar with it at least. Anybody know about chakras? And what's your throat chakra? You hear that? I'm choking. I can't even get it out of my neck. It's caught in your neck. What is throat chakra indicative of, and I'm not, selling chakras. I don't know a lot about it, but I know enough about it. I've studied it to know that it's when something's in you that you don't want to say. Something's caught in your throat, right? Is the phrase we have. That's what's going on here. The reason, what was the person's name?
Oh, Allie B.
Allie B. Allie B. The reason you're not able to journal and write the letters, the reason it gets caught in you, and you even read it was, I think, the second sentence or the first sentence where she says, the mere thought of writing their name. It was something like that.
Yes, I really struggle, get stuck, can't even write their name.
Yeah, listen to how she says it. I can't even, right? I can't even. That implies when I say, I can't even fucking say his name, you got some anger inside you, Allie. And I'm not saying it ain't justified. Don't get me wrong, all right? I'm saying you got so much fucking feeling inside you right now regarding this person. You got so much fucking anger and likely a fuck ton of pain. Why? Because anger is basically a secondary emotion. It comes after the pain that precedes it. So you got anger and pain and you don't want to touch it. Let's be really straight up with each other, Allie. You've got so much fucking sadness, anger, hurt, betrayal, whatever it is inside of you. And it's not that you can't journal. It's that something in you have a resistance to it because maybe you don't want to be overwhelmed by it or just don't want to feel the feelings again. Do you know why, in my opinion, most people don't want to go to therapy or go to therapy and then quit or whatever it is? You want to know why? Because they don't want to feel the feelings. They don't want to go into the shit. They don't want to be overwhelmed or they just don't want to feel any of it. They don't want to feel the discomfort. They don't want to do the journaling. They don't want, why? Because it's uncomfortable, because it sucks. I don't want to feel all those feelings again. Oh, okay, then don't. Then keep them inside. I guarantee, Allie B, that you know how to write, right? You wrote a note to, whatever. You write notes at work, memoranda at work, plural. I studied Latin. I should know it off the top of my head. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So you know how to write. It's not writing. It's the substance. It's the content of the writing. You got so many feelings. You guys have heard me say it, and I need to say it again because this is one of the most important things you have to understand. Nothing will fuck up your life more than all those feelings and emotions you are keeping inside. When you get those out, when you purge, when you flush, when you cry, when you feel it all, the more you get it out and put it into words, writing poetry, writing journals, writing bullet points of everything you're mad about, writing letters, writing a song, whatever, putting it into words names the beast. And by naming it, you defang it. And the more you do it, the more fangs you take out of that beast. And then guess what? Then all of a sudden your insides calm the fuck down. Less anxiety, less fear, less rage, less all of that. And then you begin to answer and operate from a sense of center. Now you're operating from that place of calm I was talking about 20 minutes ago. Okay? Follow up, Rob, or is it my turn?
I do have a follow-up from the person who talked about his inner child, and he's quite troubled, and he says a horrible story about physical, sexual, emotional abuse from his parents. They tried to sell us to predators for money, and so he says, it's this curse of anger in my life. I fear of hurting my children, not with abuse, but with anger I still have in my heart.
Right, which is why we get this anger out. Which is why you get it out. And I've got someone over here saying, well, journaling can be used against you in court. No, it can't. Not if you burn it. Who says you have to keep your journals? Not if you flush it down the toilet. I journal at every workout. I'm always journaling between sets. Why? Because if I am bringing up rage and sadness and all these strong feelings, I get so much better sets. I lift so much harder, right? So, and what do I do at the end of my workout? Tear it up, flush half of it in the toilet, and put a little bit in this trash can, a little bit in that trash can, or flush it all down the toilet. Drop it in the fireplace. And just have a lighter with you when you're journaling. Journal it. Put it in an encrypted file if you prefer that. Some people who don't have a fear of going to court or whatever, just journal in your phone. Don't do talking journaling. That's not journaling unless you go back and then edit it and read it, because journaling requires being in it, seeing it. All right? So if you destroy it, your journaling can't be used against you in court. But I see your point, Rebecca. So in the case of this person, they got to get all that crap out of them. All right, I'm going to take one, maybe two more, and we're going to call it a day, all right? Jules says, this session is hard. It made me cry. Good. That's how when you're touching the stuff. That's what you want. You want, anytime, you guys got to understand, I had a client just tell me this week, 23-year-old girl. And it's great. She said, we finally begun to have the breakthroughs, and now she's like, Sven, I can't wait for my next pain to come up from inside or around me. And she said, because I know on the other side of that pain, by the stuff you're teaching me, these tools you're giving me, I know that there's even greater peace and there's more sense of lightness about it. A 23-year-old kid saying this. That's fucking awesome, man. Anytime something makes you feel yucky, it's like, oh, boom. That should be a flashing red light and siren saying, oh, here's something I can heal. Right? So if you're crying over something or if you're angry about something, boom, there's your next thing you can heal. What are the A's you listed earlier? Can you put them in the chat? I'll give them to you verbally, okay? The A's are, it's when we're going back, when we're wanting something, usually from a parent. If you're still wanting something from that parent, holding on to a relationship, and maybe someone's taking advantage of you or hurting you, this parent or this ex-lover, it's like you're holding on to someone's collar and they just keep punching in the face. It's like, well, why don't you let go of the collar? It doesn't make sense. Anytime you're trying to, I write about it in my book, and I always tell people, if you're ever trying to figure out why someone's doing something that doesn't make sense, even if it's your own self, why you're doing something that doesn't make sense, always ask yourself the question, what's the primary fear driving the behavior? Then speculate the answers and go with the biggest, hairiest, scariest one. So if I'm holding onto somebody's collar while they're punching me in the face, why? It's because you're wanting something. And usually, more often than not, in fact, basically always, when it comes to parents especially, this goes right to Christina's question. What are the A's you listed earlier? It's because you're holding on because you either want attention, affection, approval, acceptance, acknowledgement of what they've done to you, or apology. Attention, affection, acceptance, approval, acknowledgement, or apology. And because you need that to feel healed, you need that to feel loved, you need that to feel worth. And so you can't let go because you so think you have to get it from that one person. And if I don't get it from that one person, I can never be whole, I can never be healed, I can never have peace. And the truth is that's a myth. You can get it from yourself. It's just that that's the person who caused the wound, if it's a parent, and now you want them to heal it when you fundamentally have to realize they obviously have no intention of healing it. You have to heal it yourself. People, this has been super duper fantastic. Rob, any final thoughts today?
From the listener and viewer who talked about his inner child, thank you guys forever. You guys help change lives. I got your book. I can't wait to get to work.
Ah, very sweet. Thank you so much for saying so. I've got a few of those coming in here on TikTok and on Facebook. And as we've told you before, the book is There's a Hole in My Love Cup, and the Spanish version is available as well. All of these are available on the website, badasscounseling.com, on the books page, as well as my latest book. Love Cup is an international bestseller now, and Badass Wisdom has come out. They're both available as audiobook and paperback, and they'll kick your ass and change your life. So you guys, thank you so much. On behalf of KC in the booth, or wherever she's at, she has left the booth, and Rob the Rocket standing next to me, on behalf of the entire Badass Counseling team, all my badasses, you around the world, have a kick-ass day.
The Badass Counseling Show is strictly copyrighted. No copies may be made without the express written consent of the Badass Counseling Show, LLC. The Badass Counseling Show is produced by Karen Camparelli and Robert H. Friedman. Executive producer Sven Erlandson. Original music by two-time Emmy Award-winning composer Trevor Morris. Have a kick-ass day.